Alright, hello folks. In this episode I'm going to continue the read-along of the Manifesto of the Communist Party. We left it on page 18 last time, so I continue from there. This book is horrific. I've said it in the first episode. I will continue to say it all the time. I really disagree in almost every possible sentence that it writes, but in either case, for education and entertainment purposes, I will continue to read. So let's go. The weapons with which the bourgeoisie felled feudalism to the ground are now turned against the bourgeoisie itself. Alright? But not only has the bourgeoisie forged the weapons that bring death to itself, it has also called into existence the men who are to wield those weapons. The modern working class, the proletarians. So the bourgeoisie, what it has done is bring death to itself and make the modern working class, the proletarians, the men who are to wield those weapons. So what he's saying here, what I understand him to be saying here, is that the proletarians, they are opposite to the bourgeoisie. Of course, obviously, that's what the book is all about. But the absurdity that he's raising here is that the bourgeoisie actually brought the proletarians into life and gave them the weapons to kill the bourgeoisie. In proportion as the bourgeoisie, i.e. capital, is developed, in the same proportion is the proletariat developed, a class of labor, which is like amazing, right? Because you want as much working force to be developed as possible with the same step, with the same order that technology develops, or maybe riches develop, or whatever. A class of laborers who live only so long as they find work, and who find work only so long as their labor increases capital. This here is wrong, apparently, to the writer. These laborers, who must sell themselves piecemeal, are a commodity, like every other article of commerce, and are consequently exposed to all the vicissitudes of competition, to all the fluctuations of the market. So their job is actually not secure. This is what he's saying. So they are expendable. This is how I understand this paragraph right here. Owing to the extensive use of machinery and to the division of labor, the work of the proletarians has lost all individual character, and consequently all charm for the workman. He becomes an appendage of the machine, and it is only the most simple, most monotonous, and most easily acquired knack that is required of him. Okay, my opinion on this one, on the expendability of the working man. The idea, or at least I should say in practice, I have seen in everyday life that in fact you as a worker are not really not replaceable. So the expendability said in this paragraph, in this section right here, I'm not fully opposed to. However, though, I do know to say that people interact with one another, and that's what this section is putting down altogether. So you may be replaceable, but will you be so? So the idea is that your boss, your manager, whoever it is, their primary focus is to have things work as smoothly as possible. Their primary objective is not to take you out and use you however they would like. That's what I think. Hence, the cost of production of a workman is restricted almost entirely to the means of subsistence that he requires for maintenance and for the propagation of his race. Okay, so it's racist as well. Race, what does he mean, race? But the price of a commodity, and therefore also of labor, is equal to its cost of production. In proportion, therefore, as the repulsiveness of the work increases, the wage decreases. Nay, more, in proportion as the use of machinery and division of labor increases, in the same proportion the burden of toil also increases, whether by prolongation of working hours, by increase of work exacted in a given time, or by increase of machinery. All right, let's break this down. All right, where did he say raise? Here. All right, so the price of a commodity, therefore also of labor, which he has laid down in the previous section, is equal to its cost of production. Okay, in proportion, therefore, as the repulsiveness of the work increases, the wage decreases. All right, so the worse the job, the lesser the wage. So this is the reason, according to Marx, that, for example, construction workers are paid less than, let's say, their manager. Nay, more, in proportion as the use of machinery and division of labor increases, in the same proportion the burden of toil also increases, whether by prolongation of the working hours, by the increase of the work exacted in a given time, or by increased speed of machinery, etc. Alright, same proportion the burden of toil. What is toil though? Just write toil meaning work extremely hard or incessantly. Alright, let's see. But the price of, here, in proportion as the use of machinery and division of labor increases, in the same proportion the burden of toil also increases. Okay, I see what he means. Whether by prolongation of the working hours, by the increase of the work exacted in a given time, or by increased speed of machinery. Except, however, what he fails to see is that if you work extra hours, you will be paid extra money. Because people make the job, not this idea. This idea is stupid. Modern industry has converted the little workshop of the patriarchal. Hey, the patriarchy has been mentioned. All right. Modern industry has converted the little workshop of the patriarchal master into the great factory of the industrial capitalist. All right. This is wrong because there is no, I don't know. Masses of laborers crowded into the factory are organized like soldiers, all right? As privates of the industrial army, they are placed under the command of a perfect hierarchy of officers and sergeants. Not only are they slaves of the bourgeoisie class and of the bourgeoisie state, they are daily and hourly enslaved by the machine, the overlooker, and above all, by the individual bourgeoisie manufacturer himself. Slaves of the bourgeoisie class. This is incorrect. There are bosses everywhere, but there are also leaders, and leaders are to be found only and only in capitalism, definitely not in communism. And of the bourgeoisie state, they are daily and hourly enslaved by the machine. I work as a software developer. I can say that this is partly true because you are constantly fighting the computer, but the idea is that you also have a lot of room for creativity. The overlooker, this is the team leader. I am not enslaved by my team leader. Above all, by the individual bourgeoisie manufacturer. Alright, this is wrong. The more openly this despotism proclaims gain to be its end and aim, the more petty, hateful, and more embittering it is. Alright. The less the skill and extortion of strength implied in manual labor, in other words, the more modern industry becomes developed, the more is the labor of men superseded by that of women. Differences of age and sex have no longer any distinctive social validity for the working class. All the instruments of labor, more or less expensive to use, according to their age of sex. All are instruments of labor, more or less expensive to use, according to their age and sex. Alright, so one thing is that This, I don't see this being wrong. The more is the labor of men superseded by that of women. Superseded is a big word, but I think that this would be, for example, perfectly represented in a university. You want to have university professors that are women and men. They must not be men or only men. That's incorrect. So I don't see this one being that wrong. I think what he's trying to say here is that people will no longer have any uniqueness to their job. If this is not a claim that men are better than women, this sentence right here, then what I understand it as is that what he means here is that there will be no more uniqueness in job. It won't matter if you're 50 years old or 20 years old, you will still be working as a software developer. So apparently there will no longer. So one way how I understand this is that there will no longer be wise men. So if somebody is 50 years old and I'm 20 and I'm going to work, the fact that he's 50 and much wiser than me because he has a lot of experience won't matter. Which is interesting because if you want, like, we shouldn't as readers we should be clear, we should be like objective, we shouldn't see this one as called for inequality. This is what I understand it is that it's called for lack of uniqueness, and I think that uniqueness is determined by character, not by job. So you can work many things. You can work as a McDonald's. You can work at McDonald's. You can work as a waiter, as software developer, as a scientist, anything that you want. But the point is also that um, if you have any success, people will listen to you. So this is actually, it's not taking under consideration the success that people will have. So if you are a waiter now and you're 20, but your boss was a waiter and he is now 50, that doesn't mean that if your boss starts working with you because one day there will be just too many people and you can't handle them, that you will actually not look up to him. There will be difference in uniqueness. There will be. I don't see this one being always because he says all, so that's why this doesn't work. No sooner is the exploitation of the laborer by the manufacturer so far at an end that he receives his wages in cash, that he is set upon by other portions of the bourgeoisie, the landlord, the shopkeeper. I didn't understand this sentence. No sooner is the exploitation of so far at an end that he receives his wages in cash. Pawnbroker. I actually don't understand like the semantics, the grammar here. I don't understand what he means. No sooner is the exploitation of the laborer by the manufacturer so far at an end that he receives his wage in cash, then he is set upon by other portions of the bourgeoisie, and that's it. I don't get it. Fuck it. The lower strata of the middle class, the small tradespeople, shopkeeper, and retired tradesmen generally, the handicraft and peasants, all these sink gradually in the proletariat, partly because their diminutive capital does not suffice for the scale on which modern industry is carried on, and is swamped in the competition with the large capitalists, partly because their specialized skill is rendered worthless by new methods of production. Thus, the proletariat is recruited from all classes of the population. Is it wrong to be proletariat? I don't get it. Is it wrong to be rich? He's saying that you are required to be rich, which is like quite the complaint. Yeah, I mean, you cannot complain that you should be rich. This is dumb. This is very dumb. All right. The proletariat goes through various stages of development. With its birth begins its struggle with the bourgeoisie, which it doesn't. At first, the contest is carried on by individual laborers, then by the work people of a factory, then by the operative of one trade in one locality against the individual bourgeoisie who directly exploits them. Exploitation, right? Everything is exploitation. They direct their attacks not against the bourgeoisie conditions of production, but against the instruments of the production themselves. They destroy imported wares that compete with their labor, they smash to pieces machinery, they set factories ablaze, they seek to restore by force the vanished status of the workmen of the Middle Ages. I'm going to read this again. The proletariat goes through various stages of development. Alright. In its birth, begins its struggle with the bourgeoisie. At first, the contest is carried on by individual laborers, then by the work people of a factory. Aren't these the same? Individual laborers, work people of a factory. So it's a small business, a factory, then by the operative of one trade in one locality against the individual bourgeoisie who directly exploits them. I don't get it. They direct their attacks not against the bourgeoisie conditions of production, but against the instruments of production themselves. Proletariat is people, bourgeoisie is companies. So these are poor and these are rich. The proletariat goes through various stages. With its birth begins struggle with the bourgeoisie. At first the contest is okay. So first of all we have people, then we have people that work somewhere, then by operatives of one trade in one locality against the individual bourgeoisie who directly exploits them. You are doomed by definition, he says. The proletariat will always go against the bourgeoisie. I mean, there are cases in which this happens. Now, I've had cases. I haven't fought against the bourgeoisie, but against people that I didn't like their, I don't know how to say, their leadership, the way how they handle things. I have gone against them. Against the individual bourgeoisie who directly exploits them. I wasn't exploited. I was made angry. They direct their attack not against the bourgeoisie conditions of production, but against the instruments of production themselves. They destroy imported wares. No, I haven't done this at all. And I don't think that this happens very often. So in case people, he's saying, don't like a workplace, they will burn it down to the ground. Which I haven't seen. Maybe through the ages, like 100, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, they have done this. Because people have understood that they were being exploited. But I haven't seen this shit in, like, ever. I've never seen that. Alright, second page. At this stage, the laborers still form an incoherent mass scattered over the whole country and broken up by the mutual competition. If anywhere they unite to form more compact bodies, this is not yet the consequence of their own active union, but the union of the bourgeoisie, which class, in order to attain its own political ends, is compelled to set the whole proletariat in motion and is moreover yet, for a time, able to do so. So the proletariat, which he means the people here, but he means the people of the lower class, that's why he calls them proletariat, can actually not get together, but only the bourgeoisie can bring them. Only the rich people can bring the poor people together. That's the idea here. Which is wrong, right? Of course. You can bring people together by a million different causes or reasons or whatever. At this stage, therefore, the proletarians do not fight their enemies, but the enemies of their enemies. the remnants of absolute monarchy, the landowners, the non-industrial bourgeoisie, the petty bourgeoisie. Thus, the whole historical movement is concentrated in the hands of the bourgeoisie. Every victory so obtained is a victory for the bourgeoisie. But why would the proletarians fight the remnants of absolute monarchy? I think it's because in the beginning he said that the bourgeoisie started as regular people. So what the proletariat or the poor people are actually fighting for is what already was built on absolute monarchy. This is how I understand this, which is of course delusional, but I don't care. You can fight anything. Why must you fight this? The whole historical movement is concentrated on, yeah, go fuck yourself. But with the development of industry, the proletariat not only increases in number, it becomes concentrated in greater masses. Its strength grows, it feels the strength more. The various interests and conditions of life within the ranks of the proletariat are more and more equalized, in proportion as machinery obliterates all distinction of labor, and nearly everywhere reduces wages to the same low level. But what is wrong with the interests and conditions of life are more and more equalized? It's like he's doing, why should you follow capitalism? Proportions machine everywhere reduces wages to the same low level. Low level? Well, the automatization he's saying here is gonna make everybody poor. It's gonna make you richer than what you are bringing forth. That's for sure. So automatization is the process by which machinery, he says here, but automatization is the process by which things happen by themselves. So if you've ever seen a factory going to work, they have these huge robot arms that do like one single thing a million times, a billion times, who knows how many times it is. And that has completely removed people from that work, which it should be, because all that repetition is going to drive you crazy. But that wages should be reduced everywhere to the same low level? I don't know. I don't see this one. I don't see this one. I don't understand why wages should be reduced to the same low level. There is a minimum wage, but not all wages are brought to the low level. Alright, continue. The growing competition among the bourgeoisie and the resulting commercial crisis makes the wages of the workers ever more fluctuating. The increasing improvement of machinery, ever more rapidly developing, makes their livelihood more and more precarious. The collision between individual workmen and individual bourgeoisie take more and more the character of collision between two classes. Alright. Thereupon the workers begin to form combinations, traders' unions, against the bourgeoisie. They club together in order to keep up the rate of wages. They found permanent associations in order to make provision beforehand for these occasional revolts. Here and there, the contest breaks out into riots. I think that he has this one documented. So you do go against your company if they really lower the wages, or if they don't pay you enough. But you see, because the market is so, I don't know, there are so many jobs, you can just go work someplace else that pays you enough. Always my problem with this guy is that things must work this way. So they will work this way, which I don't see. Not always will they break out into riots. There are different things. Here and there the contest breaks out into riots. Okay, so, but still, they must fight. Occasional revolts. Occasional revolts seem here to be explained that they follow trends. Sometimes the wage is low, sometimes it goes up, it's fluctuating. I think it breaks into riots because people saying that you are not paying us fairly. But if the whole economy works on that wage, I don't think there are going to be riots. I don't see that there are going to be riots. Plus, there are a million jobs that you can work. I mean, not all of them are professional and pay super well, but you can find a job that will keep you floating, always. Alright. Now and then the workers are victorious, but only for a time. The real fruit of their battle lies not in the immediate result, but in the ever-expanding union of the workers. This is what he means to do with communism here. Workers of the world, unite! This union is helped on by the improved means of communication that are created by modern industry, and that place the workers of different localities in contact with one another. It was just this contact that was needed to centralize the numerous local struggles, all of the same character, into one national struggle between classes. But every class struggle is a political struggle. You've been talking about mostly economy so far. Every class struggle is a political struggle that changes things. And that union, to attain which the burghers of the Middle Ages, with their miserable highways, required centuries, the modern proletarian, thanks to railways, achieve in a few years. Alright, let's see how this one works. I don't understand where he's trying to get with this. This organization of the proletarians into a class, and consequently into a political party, is continually being upset again by the competition between the workers themselves. Which is good, competition is good, but it ever rises up again, stronger, firmer, mightier. It compels legislative recognition of particular interest of the workers by taking advantage of the divisions among the bourgeoisie itself. Thus, the 10 hours bill in England was carried. Alright? I don't see a reason why I should be against trade unions or working people going together to fight unfair wages. So far I don't see a reason why this shouldn't happen. I don't know why it must be political, but I don't see a reason why the workers shouldn't get together into unions and whatnot. So, alright. Altogether, collisions between the classes of the field society further in many ways the course of development of the proletariat. The bourgeoisie finds itself involved in a constant battle, at first with the aristocracy, later on with those portions of the bourgeoisie itself whose interests have become antagonistic to the progress of industry, at all times with the bourgeoisie of foreign countries. In all these battles, it sees itself compelled to appeal to the proletariat, to ask for help, and thus to drag it into the political arena. This is the communist, right? This is Bernie Sanders asking for money. The bourgeoisie itself, therefore, supplies the proletariat with its own elements of political and general education. In other words, it furnishes the proletariat with weapons for fighting the bourgeoisie. But why must they go against you? Only if you treat them badly must they go against you, not by definition. Further, as we have already seen, entire sections of the ruling class are, by the advance of industry, precipitated into the proletariat, or are at least threatened in their conditions of existence. These also supply the proletariat with fresh elements of enlightenment and progress. What? This is amazing. If people are supplied with enlightenment and progress, what the hell more do you want? Finally, in times when the class struggles nears the decisive hour, the progress of dissolution going on within the ruling class, in fact within the whole range of all society, assumes such a violent, glaring character that a small section of the ruling class cuts itself adrift and joins the revolutionary class, the class that holds the future in its hands. Alright. Revolution is, of course, there is no revolution without death, but This here seems a little tricky because he's saying that revolution against bosses or your leaders at work who pay you unfairly should be met. There should be a revolution against bosses that pay you unfairly. I don't think that this is. I don't think that this is wrong. People should protest. However, that the rich people must abuse the poor people, that one I don't see. And consequently, that there must be a revolution against the rich people, that one I don't see as well. That's the part that gets me in this whole section. Just as, therefore, at an earlier period, a section of the nobility went over to the bourgeoisie, so now a portion of the bourgeoisie goes over to the proletariat, and in particular, a portion of the bourgeoisie ideologists who have raised themselves to the levels of comprehending theoretical and historical movement as a whole. All right? So the bourgeoisie here, the proletariat is taking bourgeoisie ideologists. Okay. Of all the classes that stand face to face with the bourgeoisie today, the proletariat alone is a really revolutionary class. The other classes decay and finally disappear in the face of modern industry. The proletariat is its special and essential product. Alright, so its enemy is its special and essential product. This seems absurd, this one. Seems like to be opposed to their own definition of class war. So if the bourgeoisie made its own enemy the proletariat, then why would they be fighting? Seems absurd, I don't understand what he means. The lower middle class, the small manufacturer, the shopkeeper, and all of them who fight the bourgeoisie to save from extinction their existence, no. Okay, all of these fight against to save from extinction their existence of the middle class. Why must you fight the bourgeoisie? I don't understand. Just create things. Make your own things. Don't fight them. You must. It's not that you must fight them. They are therefore not revolutionary but conservative. Woo! Nay, more, they are reactionary, for they try to roll back the wheel of history. If by chance they are revolutionary, they are only so in the views of their impending transfer into the proletariat. They thus defend not their present, but their future interests. They desert their own standpoint to place themselves at that of the proletariat. The dangerous class, lumpen proletariat, alright, the social scum, that passively rotting mass thrown off by the lowest layers of the old society, may here and there be swept into the movement by a proletariat revolution. Its conditions of life, however, prepare it far more for the part of a bright tool of reactionary intrigue. Alright? So these are what? Criminals? What are these? Social scum. I don't know why he's saying social scum, but I'm assuming that's what he means. In the condition of the proletariat. Those of old society at large are already virtually swamped. The proletarian is without property. His relation to his wife and children has no longer anything in common with the bourgeoisie family relations. Sorry. Modern industry label, modern subjection to capital, the same in England as in France, in America, is stripping off every trace of national character. So globalization is what he means here. Law, morality, religion are to him so many bourgeoisie prejudices behind which lurk in ambush just as many bourgeoisie interests. People are going to get so poor that they are not going to care about morality, religion, or law. First of all, you can't not care about law. You'll be shot, you'll be put in prison, and all of the things. Morality is, yeah, I don't think so. There are a lot of people that trying to get up the higher chain of hierarchy, I don't know how to say, up the ladder, who go up the ladder, that leave morality. But they all suffer. Religion is, well, that's just a big story to get into. But that's a fault of many things, and primarily your work, Karl Marx. All right. All the preceding classes that got the upper hand sought to fortify their already acquired status by subjecting society at large to their conditions of appropriation. The proletarians cannot become masters of the productive forces of society except by abolishing their own previous mode of appropriation, and thereby also every other previous mode of appropriation. They have nothing of their own to secure and to fortify. Their mission is to destroy all previous securities for and insurances of individual property. Well, what does he mean here? Wait, like this is what would happen, I understand, if communism was applied, not capitalism. Capitalism always gives you individual property. All right, so all the preceding classes that got the upper hand sought to fortify their already acquired status by subjecting society at large to their conditions of appropriation. The proletarians cannot become masters of the productive forces of society except by abolishing their own previous mode of appropriation and thereby also every other previous mode of appropriation. They have nothing of their own to secure and to fortify. Why? What is appropriation? What is appropriation? Appropriation. The actions of yo, really? What is appropriating? Okay, so thieving. Thievery. Appropriating is thievery. Without the owner's permission, take it for your own use. Alright, thievery. Can't you just say thievery? So they should thieve. They should take it. They should take it by force. The proletarians should take it by force as well. Force here should be defined, I think. What do you mean take it? Take it with what? Guns? All previous historical movements were movements of minorities or in the interest of minorities. The proletarian movement is the self-conscious independent movement of the immense majority, in the interest of the immense majority. The proletariat, the lowest stratum of our present society, cannot stir or raise itself up without the whole superincumbent strata of official society being sprung into the air. Well, no. I mean, what do you mean, sprung into the air? The whole bourgeoisie should die. That's what he means. Though not in substance, yet in form, the struggle of the proletariat with the bourgeoisie is at first a national struggle. The proletariat of each country must, of course, first of all settle matters with its own bourgeoisie. Why? Second of all, who is it going to settle matters with? In depicting the most general phases of the development of the proletariat, we trace the more or less veiled civil war raging within existing society, up to the point where that war breaks out into open revolution, and where the violent overthrow of the bourgeoisie lays the foundation for the sway of the proletarian. Let me reread this again. Hitherto, every form of society has been based, as we have already seen, on the antagonism of oppressing and oppressed classes. Which is wrong, right? This sentence right here is completely mistaken. Every form of society has not been based, as I have not definitely seen, on the antagonism of oppressing and oppressing classes. So, these sentences are like the root of the communist genocide. These sentences like here. Everything is oppressing and oppressed, and everything is classes. There are no individuals, according to the mighty Marx. Everything is class struggle. but there is no individual struggle. People don't do things, classes do, and people are obliged to follow those classes, which is wrong, completely wrong. But in order to oppress a class, certain conditions must be assured to it under which it can at least continue its slavish existence. The serf, in the period of serfdom, raised himself to membership in the commune, just as the petty bourgeoisie, under the yoke of feudal absolutism, managed to develop into a bourgeoisie. Alright, so everything is class movement, from slave to regular person to bourgeoisie and everything else. The modern laborer, on the contrary, instead of rising, sinks deeper and deeper below the conditions of existence of his own class. Alright, so everything is built based upon the shoulders of the laborer. He becomes a pauper, and pauperism develops more rapidly than population and health. Pauper here, I think he means like weak, scum. And here it becomes evident that the bourgeoisie is unfit any longer to be the ruling class, and to impose its conditions of existence upon society as an overriding law. I don't think this has ever been true. It is unfit to rule because it is incompetent to assure an existence to its slave within his slavery, because it cannot help letting him sink into such a state that it has to feed him instead of being fed by him. So again, the bourgeoisie will not allow people to go super poor, because then they have to feed the people instead of being fed by the people. Right? So by exploiting them. Society can no longer live under this bourgeoisie. In other words, its existence is no longer compatible with society. The essential conditions for the existence and for the sway of the bourgeoisie class is the formation and augmentation of capital. Alright, so you need capital for bourgeoisie. The condition for capital is wage labor. You need wage labor for capital for bourgeoisie. Wage labor rests exclusively on competition between the laborers. This I don't understand. So what, they set their own wages? The advance of industry, whose involuntary promoter is a bourgeoisie, replaces the isolation of the laborers due to competition by a revolutionary combination. So the bourgeoisie actually builds a combination of laborers. Alright? The development of modern industry, therefore, cuts from under its feet the very foundation on which the bourgeoisie produces and appropriates products. Okay? What the bourgeoisie therefore produces, above all, are its own grave diggers. Its fall and the victory of the proletariat are equally inevitable. This is definitely inevitable because it is not what is happening. This is mistaken. So what he's saying here is that the bourgeoisie will create their own people who will kill them, grave diggers, which is incorrect, because the idea is that the classes are made by people. People don't have to fight with one another. There are people, they have morals, they have dignity, they have an intellect. They don't have to fight because they are in different economical classes. Proletarians and communists. Section 2. In what relation do the communists stand to the proletarians as a whole? Kill all the proletarians, of course. The communists do not form a separate party opposed to other working class parties. Alright? So the working class parties are the communists. They have no interests separate and apart from those of the proletariat as a whole. They do not set up any sectarian principles of their own by which to shape and mold the proletarian movement. Alright, so the communist movement here is the proletarian movement. See, this is to be distinct from the people's movement. The communists are going with the weak, poor working class. They are going with the class. They are not going with the people. They don't see people. There are no people. There are no individuals here. It's only we, not you, not me, not I. The communists are distinguished from the other working class parties by this only. In the national struggles of the proletarians of the different countries, they point out and bring to the front the common interests of the entire proletariat, independent of all nationality. So you fight globalism, but you actually bring forth globalism. How do you know what are my my conditions in the proletariat in, I don't know, say France, and what are they in Germany? How do you know this? In the various stages of development which the struggles of the working class against the bourgeoisie has to pass through, they always and everywhere represent the interests of the movement as a whole. Of course, because you don't see people. It's always the group. The communists, therefore, are, on the one hand, practically the most advanced and resolute sections of the working class parties of every country. What? It's advanced and resolute section of the working class parties of every country. That section which pushes forward all others. Right, people move forward, not sections. On the other hand, theoretically, they have, over the great mass of the proletariat, the advantage of clearly understanding the line of march, the conditions, and the ultimate general result of the proletarian movement. What? You don't have anything clear. You're wrong about everything. You don't know anything. This shit ends in genocide. Unless you meant for genocide to happen, then it would be clear. Otherwise, you are 100% mistaken. Like, without doubt. The immediate aim of the communists is the same as that of all proletarian parties. Formation of the proletariat into a class, right, of course. Overthrow of the bourgeoisie supremacy. Conquest of political power by the proletariat. Alright. So class war, anyways. The theoretical conclusions of the communists are in no way based on ideas or principles that have been invented or discovered by this or that would-be universal reformer. Alright, maybe new, but it's not good. They merely express in general terms, what are general terms? Actual relations springing from an existing class struggle, from a historical movement going on under our very eyes. The abolition of existing property relations is not at all a distinctive feature of communism. The abolition of existing property relations, so you can't have property. It's what communism says. Everything is owned by the state. It's not at all a distinctive feature of communism. Right, okay. All property relations in the past have continually been subject to historical change consequent upon the change in historical conditions. For example, the French Revolution abolished feudal property in favor of bourgeoisie property. The distinguishing feature of communism is not the abolition. This guy, has he been around during the Enlightenment era in Europe? All they do is bring reason into the table. This guy is like completely, I don't know how to say, he's like blind. But the abolition of bourgeoisie property. But more than bourgeoisie private property is the final and most complete expression of the system of producing and appropriating products that is based on class antagonism, on the exploitations of the many by the few. In this sense, the theory of the communists may be summed up into the single sentence: abolition of private property. Right, abolition of private property. Remove all private property. It's like his own delusion has led him into this sentence, which is later then assumed to be true. How has nobody seen this, that this is wrong? In this sense, the theory of the communists may be summed up into one single sentence: abolition of private property. What more can you want to understand that this is wrong? He's saying you cannot have property. How much more mistaken can you get? Right, it's like emphasized. I don't know. We communists have been reproached, die by the way, I hope you die and burn in hell. We communists have been reproached with the desire of abolishing the right of personally acquiring property as a fruit of a man's own labor, which property is alleged to be the groundwork of all personal freedom, activity and independence. Alright. Which property is alleged to be the groundwork of all... Why is this alleged? It's not alleged. I work, I get paid. Hard-won, self-acquired and self-earned property. Do you mean the property of petty artisans and of the small peasants a form of property that preceded the bourgeoisie form? Right. Because everything is class war, then of course, even people saying that independence is true, that is an allegation, right? Of course, it's not fact. Genius. There is no need to abolish that. The development of industry has to a great extent already destroyed it and is still destroying it daily. Right, of course, nothing more than communism can destroy it in all senses of the word, and nothing more than capitalism can create or give people the possibility to have property, but of course, the bourgeoisie has destroyed it. You are a piece of shit, man. Or do you mean the modern bourgeoisie private property? But does wage labor create any property for the laborer? Not a bit. It creates capital, i.e. that kind of property which exploits wage labor and which cannot increase except upon condition of begetting a new supply of wage labor for fresh exploitation. Alright. I'm gonna stop here. At page 22, it's 5 pages. Hey, I hope we share the same hatred for this kind of idiotic ideology that has brought up genocide. I wish you all the best, and I will catch you in another episode. Alright, bye bye.